Have you ever stopped to think about who actually builds a city? I mean, not just the bricks and mortar, but the political and economic foundations of a whole bustling metropolis. Today, in this explainer, we're looking at a completely astonishing piece of history. The physical, cultural, and political foundations of modern-day Dhaka were overwhelmingly shaped by literally just one family. And the wildest part? They weren't even originally from the region. No, they were a family of migrant merchants from Kashmir. So let's just dive right into this fascinating story of the Dhaka Nawab family.
We'll be going on a structured, generational journey, tracing nearly 300 years of dynastic history. From Kashmir to Dhaka, building the Zamindari Empire, the title of Nawab, shaping modern Dhaka, the politics and freedom movement, and finally, the family's enduring legacy.
All right, Section 1, from Kashmir to Dhaka, looking at their migration and early trading routes. Because, well, every empire has an origin story, right? And this one actually begins with a crisis. So, the ancestors of the Nawab family started out as traders from Kashmir. During the Mughal period, right after Nadir Shah's devastating invasion of Delhi, figures like Khwaja Abdullah and Khwaja Hafizullah made a massive, pivotal decision to relocate to the Dhaka region. This was back in the 1730s. Hafizullah actually built a fortune trading leather, gold, salt, and pepper with Armenian and Greek merchants. But, he quickly realized something absolutely crucial. You don't build a dynasty on pepper, you build it on land. So taking advantage of the British permanent settlement, he brilliantly transitioned the family's capital into massive landholdings, securing estates like Atia Pargana in 1806 and Buzurg Umid Bor in 1812, which officially laid the foundation for their sprawling estate by 1843.
Moving on to Section 2, building the Zamindari Empire and wealth consolidation. Let's look at the unbelievable scale of these purchases.
Talk about an exponential return on investment. In 1812, Khwaja Hafizullah went to a government auction and bought the Buzurg Umedpur Pargana for a mere 21,001 taka. Now, to put that into perspective, that bought him roughly 180 square kilometers of land. That's massive. And within just a few decades, by 1870, the annual rental income from this one single acquisition exploded to over 220,000 taka. It was just a staggering financial maneuver that cemented their elite status. Honestly, it makes today's real estate market look like child's play.
Now, since Khwaja Hafizullah had no surviving sons, the estate passed to his nephew, Khwaja Alimullah. And Alimullah was the real visionary who consolidated all these sprawling holdings into one massive unified zamindari. He was a guy with immense wealth and serious taste. Actually, fun fact, in 1852, he bought the famous Daria-e-Nur diamond at a government auction, a gem that is literally sitting in a vault at the Dhaka Sonali Bank right now. But Alimullah's biggest contribution wasn't buying land or flashy diamonds, it was a stroke of absolute legal genius.
In 1846, Alimullah set up a very strict succession rule by designating his son as the single Matwali. A Matwali basically acts as the sole proprietor and steward of the family's Waqf estate. Why does this matter to us? Well, think about it. In a lot of dynastic families, immense wealth usually gets splintered and divided among dozens of cousins and descendants over a few generations, right? That completely dilutes their power. By legally declaring a single Matwali, Alimullah basically built a firewall. He ensured the estate's vast resources remained perfectly intact and undivided. It was literally the key to the family's enduring success.
That takes us perfectly into Section 3, the title of Nawab, looking at British recognition and the crest of their power.
Because with unmatched wealth securely locked down, the family's influence naturally turned into serious political leverage. Enter Nawab Sir Khwaja Abdul Ghani, Alimullah's son. During the massive geopolitical upheaval of the 1857 Sepoy Rebellion, Abdul Ghani strategically maintained his loyalty to the British Raj. In recognition of that steadfast support, the British government officially bestowed the highly prestigious title of Nawab on him in 1875. And by 1877, they made that title fully hereditary. This was the exact moment the family officially leveled up from wealthy merchants and landlords to internationally recognized nobility.
And that elevated social status was firmly cemented with their official coat of arms. Often associated with Nawab Khwaja Hasanullah, this heraldic symbol was essentially a visual declaration to everyone around them that they were the most influential elite Muslim landowning family in East Bengal. It firmly anchored their tradition, their nobility, and their elevated position under British rule.
Which brings us to Section 4, shaping modern Dhaka. This is where the story gets incredibly tangible. the Nawabs used their massive compounding wealth to physically build the infrastructural foundations of the city itself. The absolute crown jewel of this era was Ahsan Manzil. It actually started as a French trading post purchased by Ali Mullah, but it was vastly expanded by his successor, Nawab Ahsanullah. And quick aside, Ahsanullah was also a published Urdu poet writing under the pen name Shaheen, which is pretty cool. Anyway, Ahsan Manzil served as the bustling headquarters for their empire and the glittering epicenter of elite society. Today, it still stands beautifully preserved as a museum, a literal physical reminder of their golden era.
But their legacy goes way beyond just a single palace. The Nawab family practically single-handedly modernized the city's infrastructure. Nawab Abdul Ghani introduced the very first pure drinking water works in 1874, and he provided clean water to residents completely free of charge. They brought the first electricity system to Dhaka, they built the Buckland Dam to stop flooding, and they laid the groundwork for premier institutions like the Ahsanullah School of Engineering, which is BUET today, and they heavily funded what would become the Sir Salimullah Medical College. So they weren't just collecting rent. They were city builders in the truest sense of the word.
Let's transition into the 20th century with Section 5, Politics and the Freedom Movement, focusing on the massive influence of Nawab Sir Salimullah.
Meet Nawab Bahadur Sir Khwaja Salimullah, who is widely considered the greatest Nawab of the entire family. While his predecessors really focused on wealth and building infrastructure, Salimullah dove headfirst into the incredibly turbulent geopolitics of early 20th century South Asia. His actions would end up heavily influencing the socio-political evolution of the entire East Bengal region.
In 1906, Salimullah played a primary role in establishing the All India Muslim League right there in Dhaka. He also took a highly active stance in supporting the 1905 partition of Bengal. Now, looking impartially at the historical sources, he championed this to secure better economic and educational opportunities for the local Muslim population of East Bengal. And you know, the data actually backed up his strategy. School attendance rates for Muslims in East Bengal jumped by 35% as a direct result of these maneuvers. He was clearly a highly strategic political operator.
But perhaps his most groundbreaking contribution can be summed up by the number you see right here, 600. In 1921, Nawab Salimullah donated an incredible 600 acres of prime real estate alongside a massive amount of funding to establish Dhaka University. It was just a monumental act of philanthropy. It democratized higher education in the region and created an institution that would go on to fundamentally shape the intellectual and political future of the nation. And that brings us to our final part, Section 6, the family's enduring legacy. Let's look at the status of this massive estate in the modern era.
Because, as we know, empires rarely last forever in their original form. The shifting political tides of the mid-20th century eventually caught up with the Nawab family. In 1950, the Zamindari system was officially abolished. The vast, sprawling lands that had generated their immense wealth for well over a century were confiscated by the state and placed under government control. So the family was left with just their private properties, like Ahsan Manzil, and their strictly endowed charitable lands.
So, how does the family exist today? Well, they exist through the Waqf estate. A Waqf is a legal Islamic endowment that preserves property and charitable institutions for future generations. Remember Khwaja Ali Mullah's brilliant Matwali rule from back in 1846? Yeah, that exact legal structure is what protects the remaining family assets today. Currently, the estate is overseen by the 9th Nawab, Dr. Khwaja Iqbal Ehsan Ullah, who serves as the Matwali, continuing to supervise the family's historic mosques, orphanages, and educational trusts.
Which brings us to a final, pretty compelling question. What happens when the builders of an empire become the mere caretakers of its history? From Kashmiri merchants fleeing an invasion to the undisputed architects of modern Dhaka, the Nawab family irrevocably shaped the landscape, the institutions, and the very politics of South Asia. Their grand palaces might be museums now, and their vast lands public property, but their legacy is literally etched into the DNA of the city they helped build. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? The next time you walk through a bustling modern metropolis, how many secrets of forgotten empire builders are hidden just beneath the pavement you're standing on?